This video sponsor, Green Man Gaming, have just kicked off a lineup of charity bundles, and the next one on offer is a collection of legendary 2K games, including the XCOM series, the Bioshock series, Risk of Rain Returns, The Quarry, and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Save up to 96%, but only if you grab the bundle in the next 24 hours. Click the link below to start saving, or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. I'm strongly recommending Skate Story because I think it's genuinely incredible, but I do think there's a risk that people will pick this up for the wrong reasons and will be disappointed by it, because there's so much unreconciled tension in this game. And the key to understanding Skate Story is to understand that that unreconciled tension is by design. When we think skating games, we typically think Tony Hawk and Skate and Rollerdrome and Jet Set Radio. These are experiences that let us skate and let us be good at it. We launch from ramps, we rotate quickly and freely, we stick to rails as though magnetized to them. These games give us an endless, unregulated supply of the highs that come from skating's best moments. But developer Sam Eng views skating differently, and I think it's important to understand his perspective in order to understand Skate Story. Here he is in his own words.
The game is sort of like this feeling of skateboarding that I really want to bring out. The fact that it's you and the board, the fact that it's performative but also introspective at the same time. Very precise movements, these trajectories, these curves. In a way, it's so natural and elemental. I keep doing it because there's something there for me. You know, there's something I'm trying to get to, some peak, or I guess some valley I'm just like bombing down, you know. I love the feeling of fragility. It's risky, but I did it for the sake of like the sparkle. It reminds me that one of the big reasons I'm making this game is to answer that question of what is the beauty of skateboarding.
Notice he never mentions what it's like to land a sick 900 or grind a rail the length of the George Washington Bridge. He wants to bring out the feeling of skateboarding. It's not about airtime. It's about precise movements, trajectories, curves. He does it because there's something he's trying to get to, some peak or some valley. He doesn't describe skating as empowering, but rather risky. He says he loves that feeling of fragility. And the last thing he says matters most. Where other skating games have decided what the beauty of skateboarding is, and they want to help you experience as much of it as possible, to Eng, it's an unanswered question. Is the beauty found in the moment you land the trick, or is it in the pursuit of it? Is it the peak, or is it the valley? At this point, I'm sure some of you were like, bro, just tell us if the game is good or not, Jesus. And yeah, it's good. I wouldn't be strongly recommending it otherwise. But I'm going to say right now that you're going to walk away from this experience feeling very unsatisfied. You're going to feel like the mechanics were too finicky and the grinds weren't sticky enough and the open spaces were too barren and the runs were too short. A cynical read on all of this stuff is that Eng nailed the vibes but not the skating, but I think that's totally the wrong read. I think Eng achieved exactly what he set out to do because I think this is how he views skating. Something that you can do but never do enough of. Something you can be good at but something you can never fully conquer. Something that's as much about your fragility as it is your resolve. And ultimately, something you can see in the distance and race towards but never reach. An eternal quest to eat the moon. Skate Story sits at the intersection of sports game and vaporwave fever dream. Imagine playing Tony Hawk after chugging a jug of ayahuasca and you're most of the way there. Its premise is a metaphorical and metaphysical one. A demon made of wire strikes a Faustian bargain with the devil. He may regain his soul, but only if he agrees to eat the moons, all 7 of them. Reborn in glass and armed with a skateboard, the demon must now feed or be doomed for all eternity. Does that premise make sense? No? Good. It's not supposed to. 2 years ago, I had the chance to interview Sam Eng and ask him what the moon was meant to represent, and not even he knew. Quote, "I really don't even know what the moon means, but it means a lot of things, and that's actually a thing that's explored by the game. Like the moon might mean, like, making this game, trying to eat this thing. It might mean, you know, various things to various people. I'm not sure," end quote. Eng framing it this way is actually quite powerful and makes Skate Story a surprisingly reflective and introspective experience. The skater pursues a higher goal of freedom, but his pact sees him chasing a goal that's been foisted upon him. He consumes the moons and it seems to be gluttonous. They never satisfy his hunger and yet they make him sick. There's a beauty and magnificence to the moons such that slaying and consuming them feels an almost sorrowful task, like felling a colossus in Shadow of the Colossus. If this quest of yours is not really yours and it makes you sick and it causes nothing but sadness, is it a goal worth working towards? The game reflects on this question through its cast of supporting characters too. Forlorn skeletons pondering their regrets litter numerous areas. A pillow man has the sad task of overseeing a laundromat where every machine is broken. A pigeon struggles with writer's block in a coffee shop. An overly zealous cone-headed creature polices your right to sleep where and when you please. None of these side characters have any peace, and they spend their time in the underworld reckoning with their torment in different ways, but always their suffering is centered on some form of unrequited desire. These themes, characters, and side stories are no small part of Skate Story. In fact, I'd go as far as to say they're just as present and just as important as the skating itself. There's quite a few cutscenes in this game, quite a few sequences where things happen that don't involve you being on a skateboard. In fact, some of the most memorable sequences fall into this category. But don't think that Skate Story is a story-based game, at least not in the traditional sense. Don't expect a plot that you're going to be able to fully grasp. Instead, think of it as themes and ideas that manifest themselves in a variety of surprising ways. Some that make sense, many that feel like non sequiturs. What matters isn't the particulars of what Eng was trying to say when he put a pigeon with a MacBook into his game, rather it's about what that ends up meaning to you. It may mean something to Eng, but he never provides enough specificity for that pigeon to mean the same thing to you. Much like Eng's approach to skating, Skate Story's themes, characters, and events are more about asking questions than providing answers. But I don't want to give the impression that Skate Story has nothing of its own to say. Actually, I think it has a great deal to say. I think it can be quite stark and declarative at times, particularly when it comes to things like desire, loss, grief, or regret. And I think that it says it with more than just words. I think the locations, the soundscapes, the music, the lighting, every scene seems to have something to say, and it's always beautiful, but ultimately sad. And the skater's act of skating feels like an act of joyful defiance. Skate Story's visuals are unlike anything you've seen before, unless you've played Hyperdemon. Skate Story's story is a collection of moments that feel like reality stabbing through the fabric of a thickly woven dreamscape. The visuals are that dreamscape. They are wireframes and monoliths and infrared lighting. They're dioramas suspended in the endless void connected by a centipedal subway. They're the undulating of nature colliding with the cold brutalism of downtown New York City. They're cavernous government bureaucracies and tiny gym halls. The one and only thing that unifies these spaces is that they exist to be skated. You've heard of the male gaze? Well, the curves and angles across these landscapes are the result of the skater's gaze. Knee-high railings and 30-degree ramps abound. But just because this looks like a fever dream to us doesn't mean that Eng didn't sit there painstakingly designing every inch of it for years. Every new location has such identity, and they only have more detail and more flourishes the further you get into the game. Some of the work feels so wasted too, since later sequences will transport you to an area that will appear for just a few seconds before suddenly teleporting you elsewhere. Likely days or weeks of Eng's life were poured into a moment that we'll glimpse for but a second or two if we're even paying attention to our surroundings at all, given how hard it can be to remain on our board. And there's a layer beneath and on top of what we immediately see too. The sensation of speed that's been captured here, the way the camera fisheyes to frame it, shakes more as we pick up speed, the way that light reflects off the skater's body as he moves, the subtle slowdown when you stomp out a trick, the way the camera tumbles after you as you stack. Skate Story seems extremely heavy-handed with its visual presentation, and it is, but to be honest, its subtleties are just as important, and you can tell that Eng agonized over every little detail here, never resting on the laurels that his vaporwave aesthetic would have naturally afforded him. For the most part, Eng's choices were the right ones, but there is a glaring issue with Skate Story, and it's the camera. Artistically, it's totally the right call. It channels the handy-cam, chase cam stylings that are synonymous with the sport. If I wanted my game to look sick as hell, I'd have chosen the same camera. But if I wanted to make my game playable, I'd have chosen the camera style adopted by basically every other skateboarding game. Pulled back, pulled up, centered, and static. Skate Story's camera is a very unreliable narrator, shifting in and out and up and down and left and right when you don't want it to, and even when it is static, it sits at an angle that makes it difficult to see what's ahead during speedruns, and difficult to judge the distance to grind rails. It makes the game harder to play in a way that is not connected to the inherent difficulty of skateboarding. It's a layer of difficulty imposed by the desire to make skateboarding look cooler. And as such, I think it's the only actual mistake that Eng made in his development of Skate Story, because the rest of it is so slavishly committed to recreating the highs and lows of the skateboarding experience. Camera issues reducing visibility is not something you need to contend with when you're bombing down an off-ramp in real life, and it shouldn't be here either. this video, I said that Skate Story will leave you feeling unsatisfied, and that's by design. I think it's important to note that not everyone's going to see it that way. I think that some will look at it and think that its shortcomings are more about Aang being self-indulgent, unwilling to give the people more of what they want because it doesn't align with his vision. I can understand that read, but I don't agree, and I think a key pillar of Skate Story's brilliance is its willingness to leave us always wanting more. But I'm probably not making too much sense at this point, so I'll explain. Skate Story has 9 chapters and an epilogue. Most of them begin with a story cutscene before shoving you out into a makeshift open plan area. It's pavement as far as the eye can see, with various buildings and structures dotting the landscape. Here you'll be asked to accomplish some task or another. Find the letters to help clear the pigeon's riding block. Find the devil's clothes which flew off the clothing line after you laundered them. Grind rails and ledges to reveal hidden objects, that sort of thing. These spaces have no time limit and little in the way of challenges. There's simply a chance to skate because skating feels good. After that, there's typically a gauntlet style segment where the music will hit and you need to skate through a number of portals. Sometimes these are timed, sometimes not. Sometimes they have a score requirement, sometimes not. It's different every time. The only constants are you, your board, the portals, and the music. Each chapter concludes with a boss battle against a moon. Sometimes these can involve gauntlet-style races, but mostly they're about performing tricks under the shadow of the moons. The larger the combo, the more damage you deal. The trick is to use the full play area to stack as big a combo as possible, and then skate underneath the moon to stomp your trick as it looms above you. Later moons will dodge and weave as you try to do this, making the stomp trickier but more rewarding. Skate Story is a linear experience that will only run you 5 or so hours depending on how you play it. There's no free roam, there's no chapter select, even when you finish the game. There's no practice level you can whisk away to whenever you please. There's no jukebox allowing you to select whichever track you like. You see the great breadth of Skate Story's levels, challenges, gauntlet runs, boss encounters, and music, and part of you wishes you can pick and choose from it a la carte, run this level but with this song playing, or revisit this open space without having to play through the preceding 4 chapters, but those options aren't available to you. Skate Story is a singular, contiguous experience that must always be played in order, no matter how much you might want to revisit specific parts of it. Should it be that way? Question mark? Maybe not. But I find myself appreciating the feeling of wanting more rather than being allowed to gorge myself on Skate Story's best moments, something that might lead to an overindulgence that might dull the edge of these moments in my mind. Structurally, Skate Story is purpose-built to leave you wanting more whether you like it or not. A similar thing could be said of Skate Story's core skating mechanics. The skating games we play are typically power fantasies. We cannot truly skate in the way that Jet Set Radio or Tony Hawk lets us skate, but it's fun to have all the difficulty of this sport ironed out of the experience so that all we're left with is a sense of speed and mastery and spectacle. But Skate Story is less a game about skating and more a game about how Sam Eng views skating, the trajectories, the fragility, the peaks and the valleys. Skate Story looks like it's all about its vibes, but the core of it is built on wanting to recreate the authentic feeling of what it means to skate, and that means falling over a lot. It means a control scheme that makes it hard to execute complex tricks. It means combos that are shorter and smaller and less spectacular. It means you'll never find a half pipe that'll let you land a 900, and even landing a 720 is rare. Don't imagine levels that see you gliding 50 meters across an entire swimming pool or grinding rails as long as a roller coaster track. Instead, imagine a 6-inch curb and a slightly inclined disabled ramp leading up to a flight of stairs. Now imagine that 3 or 4 more times and you have most of what you'd expect to see in your typical Skate Story level. The control scheme is similarly constrained. A double tap of the X button will trigger a revert, holding right trigger and pressing B will perform a kickflip. Double tap that trigger before pressing B and you'll do a double kickflip. Maybe you can do that onto a rail, grind a bit, pop, shove it off, manual for a spell, and then stomp to finish. If you pull that off, that is going to feel really damn good in Skate Story, because doing that shit in real life would feel incredible. And that's Aang's goal here, I think. It's about making you appreciate what skateboarding actually is, rather than getting you excited about some exaggerated, impossible form that can only exist in a video game. Just as much as the game's prescriptive structure might frustrate some with its inflexibility, I expect these mechanics will have a similar effect, because they had that effect on me. So many times the music would come in and I'd be bombing down a gauntlet at speed, and I'd see a bunch of rails that I just love to grind one after the other, and I can, but it's really hard. Like, really, really hard actually. And every other skating game I've played has conditioned me to think that nailing that grind is my birthright. Skate Story is the first game I've played that was more interested in making me truly work for it, but it's a hard thing to reconcile when it looks and sounds this good. Like if you were to dump me in a bleak, realistic looking car park and fill the air with nothing but dead silence, I wouldn't be surprised to see you expect me to try and fail so many times. But with the moon trying to escape me in the distance and blood cultures blaring in my ears, you're elevating me to an emotional state that my skill level simply cannot ascend to. And that is the best way I can put it. While most other games are about empowering you to achieve beyond what is possible, Skate Story is often about the distance between your euphoria and your ability. Someone far more skilled than I probably could do many of the things that I imagine when I see these levels and listen to this music, and maybe I could one day be that person if I put in the work. Maybe that's what Aang was trying to impart all along. The beauty of the trick is not in the landing of it, but in the pursuit. It's in the valleys, not the peaks. But what the fuck do I know? Nothing, that's what. And that's what it's like to play a game like this. A game that is first and foremost a piece of art, that is less about what the artist is trying to say and more about what they want you to consider. What's your moon, and should you try to devour it? To what degree should your expectations of something be surrendered to the will of the person who created it? What happens inside us when certain senses are overloaded while others are starved? What is it like to hear the music and yet be unable to dance? And do we have patience and resolve enough to eventually learn the steps? I don't know, man. All I know is that Skate Story is fucking incredible. I waited years for this thing and it ended up being better than I could have hoped for. Stuff like this doesn't come along very often in the world of video games, and I honestly think that we're lucky when artists like Sam Eng choose video games as a vessel for their creativity. You gotta play this. I can't promise you you'll like it, but I can promise you that you'll something it, and whatever that something is, you're never gonna forget it. You might have missed it, but recently this video sponsor Green Man Gaming rolled out a new offering, charity bundles. Other storefronts have done a similar thing and they've always been a huge win-win because the money goes to worthwhile causes, tick, and you save a lot of money because charity bundles are typically really discounted, giving you a huge amount of value for not a lot of spend. Take Green Man Gaming's most recent bundle, the 2K Blockbusters and Beyond collection. Every purchase supports Covenant House, a charity helping to support young people who are currently or at risk of homelessness, giving them a safe place to sleep, nutritious meals, and a chance at a new start. So that alone is reason enough to check out these bundles. But on top of that, the savings are pretty nuts. The $5 tier gets you the Quarry and Rollerdrome. The Quarry is really great and Rollerdrome is exceptional, like for real. If you haven't played this one, please grab it. You will absolutely love it. The $10 tier grants you those two games plus Topspin 2K25, the charming Lego 2K Drive, Risk of Rain returns for the roguelite fans out there, plus the legendary BioShock collection featuring BioShock 1, 2, and Infinite, plus all the single player DLC released for them. Push it to that final $15 tier and you get all that stuff, plus the XCOM collection featuring XCOM 1, 2, and Chimera Squad, plus all the DLC for those games, as well as Tiny Tina's Wonderland, the Borderlands spin-off that I really enjoyed actually. I gave that one a recommend when it released a little while ago. If you were to buy everything in this package on its own, you'd be spending upwards of $400, but for just $15, you can have it all and you can help out a great charity while doing it. The fun doesn't stop there at Green Man Gaming Bundles, as they still have their Masterful Remasters bundle up. We can get Tomb Raider, Soul Reaver, Turok, and Shadow Man remasters for as little as $5. Be sure to sign up to GMG's email mailer as well so you can be the first to learn about their latest and greatest bundles. And if you want to grab that 2K Blockbusters and Beyond collection, then get in quick because it's only going to be available for the next 24 hours. Click the link below to grab them and be sure to click that link so they know that Skill Up sent you. Thanks Green Man Gaming for sponsoring the video and thank you for watching it.